In the spring of 1894, the sun set slow and red over the Arkansas plains, painting the fields of tall grass gold. The town of Redfield Hollow was small, a place where every man knew the size of his neighbor's harvest, and every woman shared bread at the same church table. But that evening, one house glowed brighter than the rest. The Hensley farmhouse, perched on a low hill and wrapped in the smell of roasted corn, apple pie, and laughter. Inside sat Thomas Hensley, a hard-working farmer with tired hands and a kind heart. Across from him, his wife Martha, whose quiet warmth kept their home stitched together. Their children, Eli, 14, curious and clever, Ruth, 10, sweet and shy, and Samuel, 6, with cheeks full of mischief, filled the table with chatter. It was a perfect supper, or so it seemed. By morning, the Hensleys would be gone, every one of them. When Sheriff Abner Cole rode up the dirt road the next dawn, he found the Hensley farm unusually still. The hens clucked outside, the barn door creaked in the wind, and a pot of stew sat on the stove, burned dry. No one answered his knock. Inside, the table was set for 5, plates half filled with food, cups untouched, chairs slightly pulled back as if everyone had stood up mid-meal. But the strangest part, not a single sign of struggle, no broken dishes, no footprints leaving the house. It looked like the family had simply stood up and disappeared into thin air. The sheriff's hands trembled when he found something carved faintly into the tabletop beneath Thomas Hensley's seat. "We are thankful." Word spread through Redfield Hollow by midday. Neighbors came riding from miles around, whispering theories and fears. Some said the family had run from debt. Others swore they'd seen lights over the Hensley farm the night before, bright and silent, gliding across the fields. Old Mrs. O'Donnell, who'd helped Martha bake pies that week, insisted she'd heard singing late that night, voices harmonizing to a hymn she didn't recognize. And when she went to bed, she could have sworn she saw 5 faint silhouettes walking into the fog beyond the tree line, hand in hand. The sheriff dismissed it as grief and superstition. But that didn't stop the rumors. 3 days later, a search party combed the house again. In the children's room, beneath a loose floorboard, a young deputy found a leather-bound journal, Thomas Hensley's handwriting, neat and steady. The last few entries were strange. March 4th. The land's been good this year. Martha says God's been kind. March 10th. Eli's been hearing a voice in the fields. Says it calls his name. I told him it's just the wind. March 12th. I heard it too tonight. March 14th. We are not alone here. Martha wants to pray over supper tomorrow. The final page simply read, March 15th. If anyone finds this, remember us kindly. We are thankful. The same words carved into the dining table. A week after the disappearance, a traveler came through Redfield Hollow, Dr. Lucian Avery, a physician and amateur folklorist. He had studied strange disappearances before and offered to help the sheriff. But what struck him most wasn't the empty house. It was a boy, no older than 8, who claimed he'd spoken to Eli Hensley the night before the family vanished. The boy, Billy Crane, said Eli came to his window at dusk, holding a small candle. He told me, Billy whispered, that they were going somewhere beautiful, somewhere the wind sings. The sheriff tried to comfort him, but the doctor scribbled every word. Something in Billy's eyes told him this was no childish dream. While examining the barn, Dr. Avery found a letter tucked inside a wooden beam, wrapped in cloth to protect it from the weather. The handwriting was delicate, Martha's. To whoever comes after us, we ate together, as we always do, to give thanks. Thomas said a prayer. But then something changed. The air felt warm and alive. Eli looked to the window and smiled. I saw light, like sunlight, but it was night. We are not afraid. We have been called. I do not understand it, but I feel peace. Tell them we are thankful. Tell them love is not lost." Dr. Avery folded the letter slowly, his fingers shaking. This was no abduction. It was something far stranger, and perhaps something spiritual. Weeks passed. The Hensley farm became a ghost site. People avoided it after dark. But one evening, as the sheriff rode past, he saw something flicker in the window. Light, like from a lantern. Inside, he found nothing but dust. Yet in the center of the dining table, where the plates had once been, was a fresh burn mark in the shape of a perfect circle. He pressed his palm to it. It was warm. And for the briefest moment, he heard voices. A man's prayer, a woman's laugh, a child's giggle, fading like echoes through time. Dr. Avery began cross-referencing other cases in his notes. To his astonishment, there had been similar vanishings across the southern plains, families who disappeared after group meals, always after giving thanks. But there was one chilling difference. The others left behind signs of violence. Only the Hensleys had left peace, untouched food, folded napkins, and words of gratitude. He began to suspect that the Hensleys hadn't been taken. They'd been chosen. But chosen by what? He returned to the journal and read the final lines again, whispering aloud, "We are thankful." The lamp flickered. The room grew cold. He shut the book. Months later, in September, a stranger arrived at the Redfield Hollow Church. Thin, pale, wearing a tattered coat. He asked to speak to the pastor. He introduced himself as Eli Hensley. The congregation gasped. He looked older, distant, like a boy who'd aged decades in months. He told them he didn't know how he'd come. Back, one moment, he'd been holding his mother's hand under the starlight. The next, he woke in a meadow miles away. "The light took us," he said softly. "But it was love, not fear. Mama said we were being carried home." Then, before anyone could stop him, Eli began weeping, whispering, "They didn't vanish. They were freed." Dr. Avery questioned Eli for hours. His memory came in fragments: the supper, the prayer, the sudden stillness. He described a warmth filling the room, the candles burning brighter without flame, and the table trembling as if alive. Then everything went white. Eli said he saw his father reach across the table, take his mother's hand, and smile. Then he heard a voice, gentle and deep, saying, "For those who give thanks in all things, there is no parting." When he awoke, he was alone, but he said he could still hear them singing, somewhere far away, like the sound of wind through wheat fields. Dr. Avery's eyes filled with tears. He closed his notebook and whispered, "Maybe they didn't vanish. Maybe they just went where gratitude leads." Eli Hensley stayed in the church for 3 days straight. He refused to return to his family's home. "I can still feel them there," he told Pastor Monroe, staring at the wooden cross. "But they're not gone. They're changed." At night, he'd wake crying from dreams of bright fields and singing voices. The pastor described them as visions of heaven, but Dr. Avery wasn't sure. He'd seen the light of obsession before, but never with such peace in someone's eyes. On the fourth morning, Eli finally said, "The light isn't done. It's coming again." The word sent a shiver through the whole town. The sheriff, Dr. Avery, and Pastor Monroe rode with Eli back to the Hensley farm. The old farmhouse had grown wild. Ivy on the porch, dust thick on the windows, but the table still stood in the center of the kitchen as if waiting. Eli walked straight to it and placed his hand on the burn mark. "This was where we gave thanks," he whispered. "Mama said that gratitude is a door that only opens once you stop wanting more." Dr. Avery noted the phrase carefully, gratitude as a door. When Eli turned to leave, the doctor noticed something carved newly into the wall near the doorway. words no one remembered being there before. Be still, be thankful, be together. That evening, the townsfolk gathered near the wheat fields to watch the sunset, the same fields the Hensleys had farmed. When the wind rose, it carried a strange melody, soft, wordless, but familiar. Some swore it was the hymn, Nearer, My God, to Thee. Even the sheriff, a hardened man, removed his hat. Dr. Avery looked at Eli, who stood motionless, smiling faintly. "They're singing," Eli said. "They sing every night, waiting for someone to listen." The doctor didn't know what to say. For the first time in his life, he felt small, as if the world held secrets beyond his science. Dr. Avery wrote to a colleague in St. Louis, begging for rational explanations. Shared delusions, he proposed. Mass hysteria triggered by grief. But as he wrote, the lamp in his room flickered. The flame bent sideways though the window was shut. A faint scent of roasted corn and apple pie filled the air, the same meal the Hensleys had eaten. He dropped his pen. From outside, faint laughter echoed through the night. A woman's voice, then a child's. He ran to the window, but only the plains stretched out under the moonlight. The line between belief and reason had begun to blur. In the weeks that followed, Redfield Hollow changed. People began sharing meals again, not rushed, not silent. They gave thanks before eating, and neighbors helped each other more. Something about what happened to the Hensleys, Pastor Monroe said in a sermon, reminded us that gratitude isn't about plenty, it's about peace. Even the sheriff, who'd lost his wife to fever years ago, began visiting the chapel again. "If that family found peace," he said softly, "then maybe the rest of us can too." The Hensleys' absence had become a quiet teacher to an entire town. On an October evening, the town gathered at the church for supper, their first communal meal in decades. As the pastor led prayer, Eli suddenly looked up, eyes wide. "It's happening again." The candles trembled. The air grew warm. The walls shimmered faintly with a golden hue. Dr. Avery stood frozen, his heart pounding. He felt something, not fear, but peace. A presence, vast and gentle, seemed to fill the room. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. The candles steadied. In the silence that followed, someone whispered, "We are thankful." No one knew who said it, but everyone's eyes were wet with tears. Later that night, Eli confided something to Dr. Avery he'd never told anyone. "The light didn't just come for us," he said. "It came because of Pa's prayer. He asked that our family's gratitude never end, not even in death. He said if there was any way, he wanted to share that peace forever." Dr. Avery realized the chilling beauty of it. Thomas Hensley's love for his family had called something beyond understanding. Maybe heaven had simply answered. And maybe, just maybe, gratitude was a force strong enough to bridge two worlds. Months later, Dr. Avery left Redfield Hollow. Before he went, he wrote his final note in his journal. "The Hensley disappearance cannot be explained by science, time, or law. It was not an act of cruelty or punishment. It was an invitation. I came here seeking proof of life's mysteries. I leave believing in something far greater, that when love and gratitude meet, the soul no longer fears the unknown." He sealed the note in an envelope marked, "To be read. After my death." He carried with him a single keepsake, a small wooden spoon carved with the words, "We are thankful." Years passed. By 1910, Eli Hensley was a grown man, running a small schoolhouse near Redfield Hollow. Every year on the same date, he invited townsfolk to share a meal. No one called it Thanksgiving. They called it the Hensley Supper. Each year, they'd leave one empty chair for the family that taught them to be thankful for what they already had. One evening, as Eli bowed his head for prayer, He felt a soft warmth on his shoulder, like a hand resting gently there. He didn't open his eyes. He just smiled and whispered, "I know, Mama. I'm thankful too." Decades later, travelers passing through the old Arkansas plains still stop at the place once called the Hensley Farm. There's no house left now, just open fields, waving gold under the sun. But when the wind blows at dusk, it carries a faint melody, like distant laughter, and the smell of apple pie. Locals say it's the Hensleys, a family who never truly vanished, but simply crossed over together in gratitude. A simple supper, a simple prayer, yet it changed an entire town. And those who visit swear that when they whisper "thank you," the air grows just a little warmer. Because maybe in the grand design of things, the universe keeps a place for the truly thankful, a place where love never fades and no family ever eats alone.